Paige, was that you? Okay, perfect. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I know we still have folks joining us, but welcome to the Learning Community Call for the Maternal Child Health Adolescent Wellbeing Objective. This is our fourth and final Learning Community Call for 2025. Being shared in the chat is a link to the participant survey. So this is a very brief demographic survey for participants. Lets us know who is joining us from around the state. And if folks can please go ahead and complete that as we're getting started here. As always, we would love to know who is joining us today. So we'll ask folks to please share their name, organization, and county of work in Menti. You can use your phone with the QR code on the screen or use the link and code shared in chat. Give folks a moment to do that. Seeing all the answers come in. So for folks just joining, we're sharing our name, organization, and county of work in Menti. If you're not able to access Menti, please feel free to drop that in the chat. Wonderful. Like we've got lots of folks joining us, which is great. I'm doing a quick check-in with folks around their adolescent well-being work. What youth-engaged events have you done or are you doing this fall? An advocacy training, great. Make sure folks can see these answers. Very timely. Tonight is a mental health and digital safety awareness night. Early spring, peer summit for peer leaders. Great. So some great examples of youth engagement work. Thanks, folks. Again, keep those coming in the chat. Oops. We'll go ahead and introduce this team, or reintroduce this team, I should say, that is supporting this adolescent well-being work. So I'm Sarah Bolton. I'm the Regional Community Health Team Supervisor. Our team provides statewide technical assistance and capacity building around the state. And I work out of our Madison office. And I will pass it over to Selena.
Hi, everyone. My name is Selena Freimark. I'm the Regional Community Health Coordinator for the Northwest region, and I am based out of St. Croix County. And I'll hand it over to Sheena.
Hi, everyone. Sheena Cook-Pulsing, and also a coordinator for Southwest Wisconsin. And my home base is in Vernon County. Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen Braun. I'm the Community Engagement and Coalition Specialist for Health and Wellbeing, and I work statewide. I don't think Taylor could be on today, so I'm going to hand it to Paige.
Hello, I'm Paige. I'm the MCH Communications Specialist, and I work out of the Green Bay area.
Team. So in our time together today, we will invite the Department of Health Services MCH team to share updates. We are going to hear local youth engagement highlights from our county-based extension colleagues. We'll explore youth engagement in public health with a presentation, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up with next steps. So I encourage folks to use the chat feature or to virtually raise their hand if they have any questions as we go. So before I pass it over to our friends from DHS, are there any questions? All right, great. And I will pass it over to Heidi and Kara.
Good morning. Well, welcome to the learning call for this. I think this is the last one of our 4 that are required for this year. And learning calls are required. So if there's agencies that aren't attending right now, or if you've missed one, please go back and watch the recording and make sure you do the evaluation. We do keep track of that, and we do appreciate any evaluation that is done so we can get feedback. So looking ahead, 2026 and 2030 will be the starting of the new Title V State Action Plan. That means there will be new focus areas as well as new funded partners that were selected through a competitive process. So currently, health departments are very much aware that we are in the middle of negotiations for 2026. And the negotiations are to be completed by October 31st, so you have one more week. All the documents are on the Grants and Contract website. There was a forum that was done and a recording of that. I don't know if you've all received that or if you need that. I could drop it in the link or in the chat if you would need that. Basically, there's 2 things that need to be done by the end of next week. One is the supplement, and that's where you select your objective, explain your data and partners and the activities you plan to do. And that's done through a survey link, and that gets automatically sent to your contract administrator. The second thing that's due is your budget. And there is a new budget format, so get that all off of the grants and contract website as well. And that will be submitted directly to your contract administrator. So there's 4 objectives to choose from this year: perinatal mental health, infant mortality prevention, developmental screening, and then the adolescent mental health. And there's different leads for each. For adolescent mental health, it's me and Tessa Donaldson. So if you're continuing in this work, you'll get to know us quite well. If you're doing the supplement for adolescent mental health, we are looking for all 4 core activities to be reflected on your supplement. And we acknowledge that the funding levels vary greatly from health department to health department. Some get very little. And so activities should be lined up with your allocation. And we realize that there's a lot of work to be done, and the funding is never enough. So we are trying to be very considerate of that. We are moving away from suicide for the adolescent mental health, away from addictions, and trying to move more upstream to improve youth mental health. So there's been guidance to almost every supplement that's come back that's been turned in, just trying to make sure we have all four components. So that's not a bad thing. We are just trying to make it stronger right up front, and so we have a good year ahead. We are also having a change in 2026. One of those changes is on how we do technical assistance. We truly appreciate the role that UW Extension has played the last few years for adolescent well-being. But regardless of objective in 2026, the MCH staff will be taking lead for the learning calls and resources and guidance for all the different objectives. So we appreciate the extension expertise. Hopefully you've made the connection locally and get to know their resources and can continue to use them into 2026 and beyond. Let's see. Going on to 2025, we are starting the last quarter. And so we are trying to be very mindful of where we are fiscally, make sure we're spending funds and reporting match. If there are concerns, your contract administrator should be reaching out to you. If you want to reach out to them and see where you're at with your funding, please do that. It's definitely something that's being really watched at all levels. So we really want to be considerate that we are utilizing our funds on time and in the right manner. So in 2025, we had the 4 learning calls that are required, and so make sure that those are done. And your contract administrator will be following up with you if there is a gap and they see that there's something missing. The other thing is the 2 summits that are required. There was one done in May, and I think there may be 1 or 2 that haven't. If you didn't attend, please watch the recording and do the evaluation, because that will then show that you've completed that. And then next week will be the fall MCH Summit. Make sure you register for that. You should have had the link for that. If you haven't seen it, we can get that to you. If you have difficulty registering or during the summit, please reach out to any of the MCH staff and we will do some troubleshooting for you. I know there were some challenges last time, so trying to be proactive on that. And then Q3 reporting is not required this year. It'll all be done at Q4, which is due on January 31st. So take a little breather on that. I think last year it was all due with negotiation and Q3. And so this year we said we have enough going on. And the last thing I wanted to just touch base on is we still have Connect With Me cards, which are conversation starter cards for adults and youth that can be used anytime. And we've ordered some. They are in the Madison office, and I'll drop the link for the order form in the chat. But just want to let people know again that they are available. But that's the last thing I wanted to share. And if there are questions, I'm open for that as well.
Great. Thanks for those updates, Heidi. Check in our chat for any questions. Great. And I'll just take this opportunity to remind folks that while Extension will no longer be supporting technical assistance for this specific project moving into 2026, we continue to be a great statewide and local resource. So certainly encourage folks to continue to engage with their local Extension office, including positive youth development and health and well-being educators, to collaborate on their adolescent well-being work. And if folks are interested in updates on resources and learning opportunities from the Health and Well-Being Institute, would highly encourage you to sign up for our quarterly newsletter. So that sign up link is being shared in the chat. And speaking of local county extension work, we are incredibly pleased to be joined by two of our 4-H educators who are joining us today to highlight some of their youth engagement work. So welcome, Neil and Maria. Thanks so much for being here. I will stop sharing so that you all can take over. And Neil, I'll ask that you please kick us off.
Okay, I will do that. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen? Okay. So I am the 4-H youth development educator up here in Iron County. I I guess I would say I specialize, or the central programming that I do is youth engagement, and getting young people into leadership and decision-making roles throughout our county. Um, this has obviously grown over the 13 years I've been here. Um, Starting from when I would ask young people their ideas for summer camp, I would get deer in headlights looks back at me like, we usually just pick the menu. And really simple feedback is what they were allowed to give. So I was starting out from scratch and trying to figure out how do I place these young people in leadership roles and then prepare them for those leadership roles as we as they get as we start to develop them. Um, Let me see. Okay, up here. Okay, so where we started, I tried to develop some of the programming that we had into some of the existing programming that we were already doing. The main one was summer camp, and asking them to developing a youth leadership council or planning team for the summer camp program, where the kids helped me pick things from what rec activities they were doing. I would give them budgets. I would give them opportunities to kind of up the game a little bit. I spent $50 on arts and craft supplies, and I gave you a $500 budget. What are you going to do with the rest of the money? Let's pick up some better projects and kind of giving them more leeway to understand that, this is your program. Let's make it your program, and giving them ownership in it so that they really, they wanted to see the program be successful. I also developed leadership programs were created. The big one was Outpost Camp. Camp for middle school kids, to give them an opportunity to start to learn their leadership style and develop leadership skills with other middle school kids. Selfishly, I wanted to make sure that I always had camp counselors coming through the chain, and this has over the last few years really developed. Every kid who comes out post camp wants to be a camp counselor. So it's really helped me develop the skills in these kids so that I have a great crew of 30 camp counselors. Many of my colleagues will always ask me, how do you get 30 kids to apply for camp counselors? That we can't get 5 or 6. The kids own the program. That's how I do it. The kids, if they feel very much this is their program and they want to be a part of it, they were campers and middle outpost campers. The next stage is to be a camp counselor. So that it's very much become they are going to be there all 4 years of high school, and they are not going to miss a year. So it's been awesome to watch. I also use a youth development and a community development lens through my programming. I believe youth development and community development go hand in hand. Young people should have a voice in what their community is doing and how their community develops and grows. And they need to understand what makes a vibrant, healthy community. So that's a big part of the programming that I've done over the years, starting with Youth First Impressions, where I take a group of high school kids to another community. That community sends a group of high school kids to our community. They complete a survey. and give feedback from the perspective of someone who's never been in that community before. And that has really helped me teach these kids, these young people, how to evaluate a successful, vibrant community. And that's gone, I've built that into other programs that we've developed over the years. Um, I'm sorry, I talk a lot, so I'm going to try and run through this a little faster. Why we do this, the outcomes that we're trying to do, is first of all, human capital. Rural communities are losing young people. They go off to college and they don't come back. So that rural brain drain is real, and trying to stem that it has been my goal. I early conversations with my community development educator, I realized that his goal is to keep young people here. Youth development is often to send kids away. Our idea of success was sending kids to college, and then wherever they went after that was whatever, it didn't matter. So I start to try to figure out, how do I get those kids to come back here, and how do we build the skills in these young people who don't leave to become the leaders, the next generation of leaders in our community. And so that developing that human capital, um, making sure that we have the nurses, the dentists, the trades people in our community, to make the community happen. Social capital development is really the focus of my work, though. How do we help young people build networks and connections with people in the community that can help them get things done? That's really the focus of my research and the work that I do. And then placemaking, helping young people build a connection to where they're from, and helping them develop a community that they want to be a part of and that they want to live in, has been a big piece. Again, a lot of those are all asset-based community development principles, that I kind of incorporate into what I do. There's levels of social capital. The first one is helping young people build stronger connections within their friend group and their near peers. That's a big one. The more isolated a young person is, the less likely they are to be able to feel like they have an impact and have a say in what's going on. Bridging social capital is helping them develop networks outside of their near peers and their peer group, with adults or other people in the community that can help them make things happen and get things done. And then linking social capital is kind of, how do they know the systems in the community and the networks, the organizations in the community that are here to help them, and that they can partner with to help, again, make change and develop a community that they want to live in. Where are we now? In 2016-17, the Iron County Board passed a resolution to include seats on the county board for young people. So they officially allowed 4 young people to serve on the county board. Their votes don't count. They do take a vote, though. I asked them to do that so that if the adults are constantly voting against the youth, or voting in a different way, then we can always say, you're not really, the kids are telling you something and you're not listening. So that's been a big part. They also serve on local department boards, committees in the county: finance, forestry, and human services. I think I talk about that again later. We also have them on local nonprofit organizations, and I work with a organization within Extension to engage them in some more statewide community design initiatives. County government, like I was saying, they serve on the county board. Last year we had one person serve on the airport board. He was getting his pilot's license, and I just found out this weekend he passed his pilot's test. So he wanted to be involved in the airport. So I said, okay, let me contact the airport and see if I can get someone to do this, get a place for you on the board. All of these seats in these positions were very welcoming to the young people. The problem is some of them meet at night. when the kids have volleyball practice or basketball practice, or sometimes they meet in the daytime where they have calculus class or classes that they can't miss. So we're trying to figure out a sweet spot of when they meet and where they meet so that the kids can participate as full participants. Second of all, local nonprofit organizations. Last year, what happened, I had like 20 kids come up. I usually stand in front of the auditorium and say, hey, who wants to do this? And I explain the program. I mean, usually I get a handful, 5 or 6 kids who are interested in doing this. Last year I had like 20. So I didn't have enough places for them. So I started calling local nonprofits and different organizations that I have connections with and asking them, would you be interested in having teenagers on your board? And they did. Northern Iron County Engaged Residents, or NICER, as we're called, is a local nonprofit that plans activities and projects within the community to make it better. They wrote into their bylaws right from their start that they wanted 2 teenagers on their board. Go Give a Range Health Foundation changed their bylaws last year to include 2 seats for youth. The Fair Board also has 2 seats for youth, and the Iron County or the historic Ironwood Theater also changed their bylaws. I think that's an important part because it means that they're really invested in these young people, that they're willing to change and amend their bylaws to include seats. And it becomes part of how they do business rather than just, oh, cute, we have kids here. That's important to me. I provide training for the adults, for the youth, and then I help them rewrite their bylaws if they need to, and work with the kids throughout the year. Lastly, the state, I work with the Community Vitality Placemaking team when we go into communities to help them design their community or a section of their community. I work with the high school in that community to help them to find some young people to participate with us. It really gets more adults to participate when there's a young person there. I don't know if it's because more competition. They just don't want the young people to show them up. So more adults show up when young people are there. They also want to mentor the young people and help them understand where they're coming from. And when they talk about making change to their community, the youth learn about community needs. They do some career exploration. And youth is included, the youth voice is included in all decisions. Those are all very important parts of the engagement. And to hear that we often have the youth lead activities, assessment activities in the community. We've had them as part of the design team where they're doing drawing, and like you can see in the bottom picture there, the youth are working with the artists to draw and design their community. I think that's my last slide. So recently, we also received a $120,000 grant between 4 counties for 2 years, where most of the money is going directly to stipends to the young people to identify a project and learn research techniques and create a video. The young people will all receive $1,000 stipends to participate in this program, which I think is awesome because it's a lot of work that these young people are doing above and beyond what they're already involved in. So providing some sort of financial incentive is becoming necessary in youth development programming. So I guess that's it. I probably went way over my time. So if anybody has any questions.
Any questions or comments for Neil? All right, Maria.
Okay, good morning. I'm just going to
Oh, I'll
try
stop
to share
sharing.
my screen. Oh, thanks, Neil.
Yep.
Honestly, you would have thought that Neil and I coordinated very beautifully and worked on this together. Hold on, one participant. Okay. Oops. some reason, oh, here we go. Sorry, guys, I'm struggling to get this to come up. Thanks for your patience. Can you see it?
Oh, now we can.
See
How
what
did
I
we
mean?
pick
We
the
like
same?
worked so well together.
How did we do that?
I don't know, but you put that up and I thought, this is beautiful. And honestly, Neil, and for all of you folks at DHS who are joining us, I thought you laid the beautiful foundation for me to grow on. I mean, it really worked out poetically here. So my name is Maria. I am the 4-H educator here in Florence County. And really, I'm just going to build off of what Neil was just sharing and talking about. And I'm going to focus more of like the programs that are currently happening in Florence County and the work that's done with a group called they're called Torpedoes, and it's our 4-H club that's here in Florence. And it's really a dedicated group of high school students that are committed to serving others and giving back to their community. And they do a lot of work in our county. Last year, they volunteered 660 hours. And today I'm really going to focus on the work that they're doing that's based around some of those health engagement activities. And so, to give some perspective, we have about 100 students in our high school, and 40 of them are members of the Torpedo Club. All right. And so I'm just going to focus here on some of those activities that they're currently working on and have been working on. So if at any point you have any questions, feel free to interrupt and ask during. And Sarah, is there a time? I can watch the time. Is there a time that I need to be done at? No.
Sorry, Maria, I am struggling to find my unmute button. We are running just a couple minutes over now, so I would say next 5 minutes would be great.
Okay, perfect. Then I will just be mindful of that. So as Neil was sharing, just really empowering those youth to be involved in the community and to have their voice be heard. So the Torpedo Club is a youth-led club, and they make all of the decisions and participate in a lot of community events. So most recently, I'm sure every health department has their community health assessment planning that they do every 5 years. And it was wonderful this year. Florence County had theirs, and the health director had reached out to say, we would really like to have some students. We want their voice to be heard during this assessment. So we participated in that meeting, and it was really beneficial. Sort of like Neil was sharing at those county board meetings, even though they don't have a vote, sometimes if it's not aligning, you're thankful for their presence and for their perspective. And so they did participate in that, and that's exactly what we saw. The community stakeholders had very different perspective what the needs were in the county compared to that youth voice. So it's, I would say, really important to be able to include youth whenever you're having those health assessments. We also have youth in our Torpedo Club that serve on the Florence County AODA and Mental Health Coalition. And they work a lot with like the YRBS data and helping when we look at that and interpret what are some of the needs that we're seeing based off those survey results. What are some activities that we could implement in the schools or in the community? Another program that we have is the Weekend Backpack Food Program. And so when we had our YRBS data that we had received, those results, one of the things that was of great concern is 40% of students said that they had experienced hunger due to lack of food at home in the last 30 days when they had taken that survey. And so that was really alarming for us. And in our school district, about 52% are eligible for free or reduced lunch. And on the weekend, they don't always have access to food. So the Torpedo members and I, in collaboration with our local St. Vincent de Paul and the school, we started the weekend backpack food program. So the Torpedo members work with me and we do all of the food ordering. So they have a budget that they have to work within for the school year to be able to order all of the food. And then every week we meet at the elementary school. They assemble all of the food bags. And then once all the students are gone at the end of the day, they go and they distribute them into the students' lockers. So they have food on Friday to take home for the weekend. And that's really helping us combat some of those food insecurities and fighting hunger in the community. We also have the Smart Snack vending machine. So we're a very rural community in Florence, and the high school does have open campus lunch. And most of the kids, you have 40 minutes, but many of the kids, their homes are 20 plus miles away from the school. So what was happening is majority of them walked down to the local gas station because we also don't really have we don't have like a Subway or McDonald's or any quick food. There's the tavern, probably 3 of them, and that's it. So they go to the gas station, they eat ice cream or chips and all kinds of junk for lunch. And one, it's very expensive, and they're just not making very smart food choices. So the Torpedoes took over the vending machine, and now it's a smart snack vending machine, which meets the USDA criteria for smart snacks. And they once again have a budget. We order all of the food, and then I have 2 Torpedo members each year that manage the vending machine. So they're restocking it, taking the money out, and all of the money that's made from the vending machine is used for student activities. So it allows them to have additional field trips throughout the year, and just supports the students in other positive ways. So that has been really beneficial. And they just learn a lot of different skills life skills through these different activities. Another program that we do, and this is in direct partnership with our local health department, is a program called Keeping It Real. I don't know if anybody's familiar with this program, but it is a drug and alcohol prevention program for middle school students. So we invite our middle school here is just 7th and 8th grade. We invite 7th and 8th grade students along with their parents or another loved one to come for the day. And they participate in a simulated experience where there's a teen overdose that happens. And they go through the overdose, like the student going to jail, the overdose, resuscitation, and then there's a mock funeral. And we just really work with the parents to create an environment that opens up communication around drugs and alcohol and what are some of the things that they can build upon that. So when they go home, being able to have those conversations and just keeping that door open. And so the Torpedo students they're the actors or actresses in it, and they are the ones who are having the overdose and the friends that are there with them through that whole process. And one other program that I just want to highlight at the local level is we do have our Bobcat Buddy Youth Mentorship Program. And this program has been extremely beneficial in just helping improve elementary school students' attitudes about school, improving their behavior, and also building social skills and improving relationships with their friends and family. And so what this program does is it takes one of my Torpedo members, high school students, and I pair them with one of the elementary school students who's really lacking a positive role model in their life. And they are trained and they meet with these students once a week for the entire school year. And and so that program has been extremely successful. Last year, I had 11 high school students who wanted to be mentors, and this year I have 26 high school students who are willing to go over and mentor one of the younger elementary students. So really just been very impressive. And for the high school students, it helps to develop those leadership skills, life skills, communication skills, all of that good stuff. So beneficial for them as well. And it was exciting. This program, we're starting our third year, and I had one of my torpedo members graduated, went to college in Stevens Point, and he felt that the program was so beneficial. So he has now signed up to be in the Big Brother Big Sisters program over in Stevens Point. So it's always nice when you get to see those skills transfer into their adult life. So those are the youth focus. Sorry, I tried to go through it as fast as I could, Sarah. I know we got limited time. But those are a lot of the programs that we're working on that have that health related focus. And if you have any questions, there's lots of other programs that we do too, but if you can reach out to me at any time. I left my email, my phone number on there. Any questions?
Questions or comments for Maria and or Neil?
Well, thank you very much for having me, and thanks for the great coordinating, Neil.
Yeah, thank you both so much for joining us and for sharing.
You're welcome.
All right, lovely. So next, we are thrilled to be joined by a group of folks involved in the Game Changers program, who are going to share their experience and expertise around integrating youth in public health. So I will ask our presenters to introduce themselves, and I will turn it over to them.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. Can folks see my desktop screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarah and UW Extension, for inviting us. This was a really special invitation, and we're so excited to be here with you all. So, yeah, we're going to get right into it. I'm going to pass it off to Amelia, who will start our introductions.
Hi everyone, my name's Amelia and my pronouns are she, her. I'm at UW-Madison's majoring in gender and women's studies with a certificate in disability rights and services. And I was a game changer from 2020 to 2023, and now I'm back as an adult facilitator for the program.
And my name is Linnea, and I'm a recent PhD graduate from from UW-Madison School of Human Ecology. And now I work in West Michigan for a small firm. And so this presentation is brought to you by two other incredible youth leaders, Bash and Akoya, who cannot be here to attend today due to school conflicts, but these ideas that we're presenting here and these stories are also theirs. So I want to make sure I gave them a big shout out. We also have Courtney Schwalbach, the Game Changers coordinator, on the call today, and Bree, who is the Director of Outreach, Education, and Prevention from the RCC. So if folks have questions about, for the organization leadership at the end of our talk today, they are available to answer those questions. I'll pass it back to Amelia to talk a little bit about some background.
Yeah, so we are in part representing the RCC Sexual Violence Resource Center, which has been a Dane County institution for over 50 years, and it is a full service provider for youth, families, survivors, and communities. And so among the many programs it has, the RCC has an incredible youth program called Game Changers, and this involves and pays high school students as leaders and activists. Game Changers members meet throughout the school year and receive a comprehensive social justice education and direct and design youth-led projects. And so in 2023, Linnea and Game Changers staff and members began designing an evaluation that would mirror the program's youth-led nature and focus on capacity building. The Game Changers evaluation project incorporated a participatory design, and Game Changers members were involved every step of the way, from drafting the evaluation questions to analysis to sharing the findings with audiences like this one. And we'll be talking more about each of these throughout our presentation. And so ultimately, we hope to offer some strategies and insights on how to get young people excited about public health and to create real, genuine roles for them in public health spaces. Finally, this talk features youth public health leaders and some of their adult allies. We hope this can be a learning and growing opportunity for everyone.
All right. So to start us off, we want to dive in a little bit to how to mobilize and engage youth-led community action. So, first of all, youth programs from our lens really should be accessible to young people. Youth participation needs to be genuinely possible for youth of all backgrounds, and this should be supported. So, this accessibility requires funding. Neil and Maria both talk about the importance of grants and the amount of money that you need to run these programs, but paying youth for their time is not only an incentive for them to join, to participate, but also motivates engagement and reduces financial barriers for youth who really need that money. Many young people have to make hard decisions about how they spend their time. And you offering compensation, you get their energy, you earn their time. And so young people's time in labor has incredible value. They are making real contributions to the work of your organization, and they're making contributions to society, and they should be compensated accordingly. At Game Changers, like Amelia shared, members earn an hourly rate. So rather than receiving, a set stipend for so much work, they receive and track their hours by month, and they receive actual paychecks. And they also are provided opportunities to contribute additional hours when that's needed, when they want to do some side projects. And the evaluation found that this compensation is foundational to the impact that members experience. Another form of support that's incorporated into Game Changers is by providing transportation, whether that's mileage reimbursement or rides provided through programs like Lyft. This is a newer feature of Game Changers and has made a huge difference for some members who don't have their own car, who live maybe on the further end of the county and don't have someone available to bring them to weekly meetings. Finally, youth programs and organizations need to consider what other kinds of expenses need to be covered through the program. There are others that include, materials, space rentals, fees to participate in events and attend activities in the community, different kinds of supplies that students need to build and work on their projects. And so ultimately, youth leaders and youth activists need to be invested in a financial sense, just like they need to be invested in a personal sense. And that supports future engagement and retention. So once you have youth in the door and you have the proper materials, there should be an emphasis on autonomy. Autonomy includes this freedom of choice in the shared decision making amongst youth and between youth and adults. So young people should get to choose their subject range. They get to choose their project style, as well as what kinds of jobs and responsibilities that they hold within their program and within their projects. This sense of power provides them an opportunity to practice this responsibility, to practice this sense of leadership, and to build those competencies. This autonomy should also be an important value throughout these group processes as folks make decisions together. So this can look like emphasizing follow through and accountability around responsibility, around actions, around timelines and deadlines. And this provides young people with really important learning opportunities and experiences to build tangible skills for their future. In Game Changers, some of these skills have included financial skills, right? How to manage a paycheck, how to consistently log your hours and to track that kind of thing. They're building financial and social skills, professional skills, interpersonal skills. And this skill development is an important outcome of youth programs in general. So To another couple more examples, game changers, some professional skills included networking, contacting board members of the organization, talking to state legislators, sending emails, working as a team, and doing community outreach. And they also build things like financial literacy. They build skills in event planning and time management. So with this youth autonomy centered, adults should be and can be these mentors and guides as youth build that readiness for their futures. So facilitators, adults, and coordinators can help when youth are stuck in a project or need advice or need a connector point or need an idea or just need encouragement. But ultimately, youth are allowed to problem solve together on their own terms. And so while facilitators can host group lessons and discussions, young people are coming to the table with their own conclusions and are negotiating these responsibilities and actions amongst themselves. And when that work is compensated, young people are fostering a sense of work ethic and explore this professional setting. And these experiences within a meaningful and really positive workplace culture set a tone for their rest of their career and setting the youth up to demand respect, to demand voice in their workspace, and demand good working conditions. All right, finally, within this kind of bucket, youth programs really should emphasize youth self-care and make self-care possible. So first, providing food and drink is essential at meetings, at gatherings with youth in person. Big surprise, people need food to function. And this is especially true for teens and young adults. And in Wisconsin, 1 in 6 youth are food insecure. So providing meals and snacks and drinks, especially like good food and good snacks and good drinks, not only makes people excited to be there, but it addresses people's physical and nutritional needs for all youth, regardless of their financial background or potential food insecurity. So it might seem like a simple task or a simple action, but it really can mean all the difference. Further, the conversation and community built over a shared meal is a really prime opportunity to foster community. Second, programs must provide accommodations for mental health struggles and physical issues, including addressing needs for youth with disabilities and neurodivergent youth. Programs should encourage youth to rest and be open in reflecting on their bodies and what they need in the spaces that they're in. And that allows young people to reflect and to communicate about their needs, but there should be infrastructure in place in these organizations to address those needs. So self-care, especially in this activist and advocacy space, is a strategy for personal sustainability and it's a strategy for social change. So, for example, in 2020 to 2021, the Game Changers coordinator at the time put together and sent out these self-care kits to all Game Changers members. And then this was like the virtual pandemic era, so this was particularly important then. But those self-care kits included things like crystals and coloring books and fidget toys and other kinds of items to really encourage young people to explore which suited them, what their specific self-care strategies could be. It is not a one size fits all, but encouraging people to reflect on that and to practice that actively during meetings and outside of meetings is an important strategy for youth programs. And then lastly, programs should prioritize networks between youth and their adult allies. And this can happen over social media or other platforms like Instagram, Discord, Slack. And this allows youth and their adult allies to keep informed and updated about what's going on. Community is everything. Most young people come to these programs looking for community, and that's why they join. That's why they stay. That's why they come back. So creating opportunities for youth to connect outside of meetings is just as important as opportunities for them to connect during meetings. So these networks can also be great tools to keep folks updated about meetings and reminders about deadlines and makes communication more possible and accessible. It also opens up the space to normalize friendship and socializing amongst these young people. Youth programs are settings for lifelong relationships. All these qualities help youth feel seen and help actively support youth where they are at in life. And that makes their participation in these programs possible. It makes it comfortable and it makes it rewarding for them. So I'll pass the mic back to Amelia.
Yeah, so now we're going to talk about how we can better connect with youth when we're discussing public health and social problems. So this might seem a bit daunting, but there are ways to break it down to seem more manageable. So first off, social media. Obviously, a lot of youth are on it, a lot of adults are on it. So it's just a great way for everyone to kind of just learn about different issues and then share what they learned. And so we're just able to talk about like what issues matter to us and just share our passion with others. And also just like one thing to like keep in mind throughout like the social media era is just like inviting youth to share what they're seeing on social media and talking about media literacy and dialogue around misinformation and bias. And another way is to host fun events. Obviously, like, that will bring teens to like center teens and bring them to the actual events, but it's also a great way to build community and just bringing in the community to the events that youth host. And so being able to balance the work with on public health and social issues with fun activities. And so young people often have a lot of ideas of how to bring information and training into the communities that might be overlooked or not considered by adults. So making sure that their ideas can and like just in general inform aspects that go into events, so, like marketing, planning and designing the event, facilitating and hosting the events. This really helps center young people as the experts and leaders, and this gives them tools that connect with like experiences far beyond just the program. And so one last thing to think about is also just creating space to talk about high level complex issues. And so in the Game Changers program, the facilitators create a very welcoming and inclusive space where we can talk about public health and social issues like sexual violence and just learn from multiple perspectives of people. And the adults in the room like model accountability by like through like the discussion dialogue and then actions obviously, but like that's so important because young people shouldn't be expected to engage in respectful dialogue if the adults aren't willing to. So kind of just creating a space of accountability in youth programs where everyone in the space holds themselves and others accountable. And also just like a major part of accountability is just learning from our mistakes so that we can know and do better, especially when we think about like many of the Game Changers lessons have included like discussions around power and oppression, gender and sexuality, and race and class. And obviously these are not easy topics to discuss all the time, and youth programs include people from different life experiences, so accountability can be helpful in these moments. And so thinking about how this reflects in the Game Changers program. So one part of the aspect of the program is that students take over the Game Changers Instagram for a week and just post about issues that they're passionate about. And this really helps students explore like social media skills and then also just learn more about like issues that they are passionate about. So this could be like environmental issues or how to better support survivors in schools, basically just any issue that they'd like to focus on. And then another big part of the program is doing student-led projects. And so students discuss and reflect on issues that are most prevalent in their communities, and then they use the projects to address the issues. And so this has looked like rallies, art shows, zines, and just so much more. Basically, like we just want to give full reign to the students and like encourage them to think outside the box and how to engage in their community. And so a recent example of this is that last year the Game Changers created a children's book on consent. And like there aren't many like materials or tools out there for children about consent. So this is like a way to branch it to a new like audience and just like using creative skills to reach kids in consent education, which is really important. And so kind of like thinking about this as like a whole like cycle. So like one way to easily create connections and create a space for building connections is bringing in guest speakers into program meetings. And so this really helps foster exposure to community work and the impact it makes for youth who need places for their inspiration to go to make active change. And not only is it is a great example for youth, but it also strengthens personal and professional connections for the youth as well. And so they'll have like supportive programs or professionals who they can go for help if needed, and then they'll also have like informational experts to reach out to, which helps them become more independent in their own activist and social justice work. And so oftentimes there's a barrier between youth activism and like adults in the social justice and activist spaces. And so bringing in guest speakers really helps break that social barrier between the community networks and youth. And so it provides opportunities for youth to be involved in the decision making and the conversation, and just allowing youth to have more freedom and autonomy and just power to be able to connect with more experienced leaders and also bring their own experiences to the table. And so thinking about how this applies to the Game Changers program, so we've had a bunch of guest speakers in the past, and we continue to bring in guest speakers. And so this has looked like presentations from Patch, which is a group of youth high school educators who teach youth about healthcare self-advocacy. And this is just very cool because it's another youth program. And so it's a great example of just creating connections with other youth programs and being able to engage in that. And another example is UW-Madison Sex Out Loud, which is a student organization of empowered student leaders who teach a lot of positive sex education, which is amazing to think about how students have an example of something they can do in the future after high school if they choose the route of college or like secondary education. And we've also had a doula as a guest speaker who has shared processes it takes to become a doula and just surrounding like autonomy and empowerment through the pregnancy process. And just all these connections have been incredibly eye-opening and empowering for youth to learn from and can help youth build confidence. And then thinking about an example outside of the Game Changers community, but in Dane County. So this is the Powerful Teen Leaders Program at Sustain Dane, and I was most fortunate enough to have worked there this summer. So I can tell you it is an amazing program. It's a group of students from around the Madison area who are passionate about their environment and want to learn more about green economy and send jobs. And so through this program, the youth travel to different sustainability of related work sites and learn directly from experts in the field. And so, for example, we went to Exact Sciences and they learned about their sustainable practices that they use through the hydroponic farms. And so, along with like obviously like field trips, they also have a lot of opportunities to engage in hands-on experiences that are just very beneficial for future jobs. And so as you can see in this picture, so they visited Madison College and they learned how to install and disassemble a solar panel. So that is like great resume building experiences. Amazing. Um, and this program just does overall and like incredible job of creating connections between youth and experts and just giving youth the space to ask questions and engage in the work. And so, for example, we worked with Operation Fresh Start, which is an organization in Madison to dig up invasive species. And this just allowed students to create connections with the staff and students there and learn more about how they themselves could apply to Operation Fresh Start and like engage in that community. So yeah, those are some like great examples, and I'm gonna pass it over to Linnea.
All right, the final kind of segment of our chat today is to think about how to encourage adults and youth to find an empowering and equitable facilitation style within these programs. And this really refers to the dynamics between youth roles and adult roles and how to create really meaningful spaces for young people to learn and to grow together. So, how do these youth programs become spaces that young people want to be? How do we make these programs a place that youth want to return to year after year? In Game Changers, there is like this incredible return rate amongst Game Changers members. In the Game Changers evaluation, most students had been in it at least 2 years, but several had been in it for 4 years, all 4 years of high school, which is incredible and says a lot about the program. But how do we boost retention and make these spaces somewhere fun and engaging and affirming? So ultimately, young people have a sixth sense about who is really there for them and who really sees them for who they are and who wants to hear and elevate their ideas. So adults are really critical partners in youth spaces, and their roles can take many different forms as partners and allies. So in Game Changers, the adult facilitators and coordinator are there to support and take notes, ask guiding questions, and to support members' learning. They bring the resources to the table, they help locate the space and organize the logistics, but the youth share the responsibility in their projects. They set the priorities, they do the actual work. Allowing young people to lead in their own projects and research won't only make them feel empowered, but it also encourages them to take initiative and gives them active and meaningful leadership experience that they can bring into future actions after they graduate high school or wherever they are. Secondly, space should be provided for youth to have fun. Amelia already touched on this a little bit. But that also means like being taken seriously. Youth are naturally gonna have silly moments and maybe even be a little immature at times, but it's important in an inclusive and supportive environment for young people's joy to be celebrated and not diminished. It should be noted that fun events, if possible, should be integrated into your program to keep youth excited and engaged, to allow some brevity in between tough conversations and lessons. Life is hard enough on young people and everybody, frankly. So your space should be somewhere that youth want to be, where they feel like they can really be themselves. And if you feel stuck on what kinds of ideas would be fun and would get youth excited, just ask them. They will absolutely tell you what they think would be fun. So don't be afraid to ask those questions of the youth in your community, in your organization, in your family about what they think and what would be engaging for them. Lastly, on this slide, an inclusive and safe community is a place where young people feel comfortable sharing their ideas. They share their thoughts and opinions, and they share their lived experiences. And that sharing is crucial to creating these meaningful spaces. So it's important to normalize and encourage being open and honest while still holding respect for personal space and boundaries. Youth will feel safest and most comfortable when their feelings are prioritized and validated, and therefore will be more active in their participation. And this kind of like safe and welcoming culture is fostered and modeled from the top down. And it's created when adults themselves can show vulnerability while also honoring their own personal boundaries and the boundaries of the youth that they are working with. So all adults can really be mentors in this way, showing young people that it's okay. And in fact, it's beautiful to be their most authentic selves. But it can be really daunting to relinquish control as an adult, especially when you are someone super experienced and entrenched in your role and you've been in the field a long time. But to give opportunities for youth to learn and gain this experience as leaders, it requires adults to get out of the way. And that is the point of youth programs, is to pass the microphone, to share, to pull up a chair to the table. So, for example, I want to touch a little bit on the Game Changers Evaluation Project, which I think offers a really cool example of how adults and youth can work together on a really important effort. So, during the Game Changers Evaluation Project, in intention to honor the shared commitment to youth leadership and capacity building from start to finish, this meant that young people would be leading the data analysis too. And this is one of the more complex and involved tasks of any evaluation or research project, as many of us in the room likely know. But with the right scaffolding, with the right support and resources, like time and funds and space and food and materials, young people can do literally anything. And so during analysis of this evaluation, we're talking survey data, we're talking interview data from youth members. Now, these same youth members are in the analyst role. And so me, as the adult in this space, as the kind of project lead supporting this evaluation effort, my role was as moderator and facilitator. I was not the analyst. I was not the interpreter of the data. I helped get the data ready for the youth, like putting it into tables and anonymizing the transcripts and printing out handouts. I led a brief training about thematic analysis and how to interpret survey data and scales and things like that. I prepared some questions to encourage conversation and dialogue about the data amongst the youth, but I didn't give my opinion. I didn't answer the questions myself. They did that. But they did the determination of what the data meant. They discussed what the results were from this evaluation. They summarized the conclusions and implications of the data, and they identified how the data would be used and to whom it would be shared. Because this was consistent with the participatory and transformative design, which was the one that we had selected together, youth have the right to explore their own experiences through their data and to understand what's important about it. So in between this hard work, though, we laughed, we shared meals and told stories. We showed each other pictures of our pets, and we took phone breaks where we could just surf the internet or whatever. We made space for that joy and for just breaks in our mental, load, and we made space for that connection and for learning. And you know what happened when I stepped back and really allowed these young people to come together to work through this data analysis? It got done, and it got done so incredibly well. The conclusions that they drew from this data did not represent my interpretation as an outsider, but it represented those whose data it was, those whose data would be used to improve the program. So the recommendations that came from this evaluation reflected those who had lived through the program, not me, an outsider who had not been in Game Changers. Oops. Can you still see my slides? Okay. Sorry about that. So ultimately, relinquishing control and passing the microphone to youth is a powerful choice that adults have to make. But youth shouldn't have to do this work on their own. They shouldn't have to take on these responsibilities without any support or resources. So when you step back as an adult, you get the opportunity as the adult to see just what young people are capable of, what they can do, and you get to learn from their expertise. So ultimately, youth voice and choice and expertise make your programs better, and they make our society better. I'll pass to Amelia to wrap us up.
So, if you take away anything from today's lecture, we want you to take away these ideas from our findings and experience with empowering youth. First of all, young people are more capable than most adults realize if only adults pass the mic and provide a chair at the table. With the right supports and resources, programs have potential to be transformative for youth and the organizations themselves. The second idea that is programs and activities should be designed with youth, for youth, and understood and evaluated by youth. We've had enough of adults making all the decisions about what's for best for us, and it's time for youth to lead and have a say. At the same time, adults can play an important role in youth programs by being role models as professionals, advocates, and allies. And lastly, funding young people's time and labor validates their contributions and creates accessible opportunities for all, and only expands possibilities for impact in your community. Thank you so much for listening, and we welcome any and all questions or comments. So feel free to raise your hand or drop them in the chat, and we'd also love to hear what strategies you're using with youth.
Questions or comments for our presenters? So you're seeing you're getting some love in the reactions. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Carrie. Other comments or questions? Got a quiet group this afternoon. But Linnea and Amelia, thank you so, so much for joining us today. Thank you for a fabulous presentation. Really appreciate you joining us and sharing your expertise and experience. So I am going to wrap us up with just a few last things. I'm trying to keep my eye on the chat. So for our adolescent wellbeing partners, a reminder that the fourth and final adolescent wellbeing workshop for 2025 will be held Wednesday, November 19th. That will be from noon to 1. And that session will include a presentation from our behavioral health team on the Youth Substance Use Prevention Toolkit. So please be on the lookout for that meeting invite. And then folks hopefully saw this communication, but a reminder that we do have upcoming mental health, youth mental health first aid offerings. So the registration link is being shared in the chat. Please only register for one session. Upcoming sessions are October 31st, November 14th, and December 8th. And those sessions are free and open to you as well as your community partners. So please join us and please extend the invite to your community partners. It's a great opportunity for a free training. And then in our last few minutes here, I will ask folks to please complete the Learning Community Call Evaluation Survey. The QR code is here and the link is in the chat. There's only 5 questions, so it can be done relatively quickly. It's incredibly helpful to get feedback on what went well, what could be improved. DHS will use what you share to plan future calls and to better meet your needs. And if you're able to complete that while you're on the call today, the completed evaluation counts as your required attendance for the Learning Community Call. So giving folks some time to do that, but we'll also remind everyone to reach out to us at our youth health email and to sign up for that health and wellbeing newsletter to get updates around trainings and resources that are available to you. Thanks again to our presenters. Once folks have completed the survey, you're welcome to hop off. Our team will stick around if folks have any questions. Thanks so much.